Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video, I'm bringing to you my review and discussion video of A Coat of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas, which is the third book inside the ACOTAR series. I have my review and discussion videos of the first two books already out in the channel. I'll link them in the description as well as in the iCards. So if you're a fan of the series or if you want to know more about it or know my opinions on it, you can definitely go forward and check those videos. By the time I'm filming this video, I have finished reading all the 5 books that are out in the series so far. So you'll be getting the review and discussion videos for the next 2 books in the series also pretty soon. Just like I've done for the first 2 books, the first 5 to 10 minutes of this video will be a spoiler-free review for this book. And after that, I will be diving into the spoilers for this particular book alone. I'll let you know before I start the spoilers so that if you don't want to get spoiled for the series, you can skip from the video. And also, if you are to discuss spoilers with me, please remember to keep all the spoilers only until the extent of this book in the comments so that anyone who has not read the successor books inside the series doesn't get spoiled for it. So without any further ado, let's get into the video right away. In the spoiler-free part, first talking about the plot, this is basically like a finale for the first half of the series. Because after book 3, all the other books that we are going to follow are going to focus on some other characters whom we've seen in this same series. So technically we can say that the arc of the series, which considers Feyre as the main character, ends with the 3rd book. And I should say that this did feel like a finale in multiple instances. Apart from just the plot alone, we also get to explore a lot about some of the side characters' backstories and some of the relationships that have been building ever since the beginning of book 2. While doing all those things, the author does make sure to display the abilities of the main character as well as all the abilities that are acquired by the side characters properly during multiple instances throughout the plot. But one thing which I did not like is there were certain things which were brought up as conflicts and issues and they got sort of resolved really quickly. For instance, I can say like when a character is kidnapped and they are to be saved, there's this huge scheming and planning that is happening. But in the very next chapter itself, all those scheming and planning work out properly and perfectly and that character is actually saved from the place. For a final book inside the series, I think all those things could have been a bit more stretched out and made a bit more interesting and entertaining. It just felt very straightforward here. There are quite a few instances like that inside the plot of this book which felt a bit loose. But apart from that, in terms of the plot, I don't have much of a complaint because it did feel like a finale, at least for this arc of the series. Now moving on to the characters, especially in terms of Feyre, okay? She's the main character who we've been following from book 1 and I see that many people do not like Feyre, at least in book 1, and from book 2 she grows onto people. But I should say that personally I liked Feyre ever from the first book itself because I got where she is coming from and the reason why she is behaving in certain ways during certain instances. I can understand that people get annoyed to it and it is a very reasonable reaction. Despite that, I was able to empathize with her at multiple instances and she just grew on me a lot more in book 2. And in book 3, I should say that she displays clear main character energy from the first chapter to the last. There are also instances during which some of the side characters take the center stage and they are the ones who are actually moving the plot. But if you ask me for this whole book or these first 3 books inside the series itself, it is very clear that Feyre is the main character. She does tend to have a bit more overpower compared to some of the other characters inside these first 3 books. But there are also instances during which she uses those powers properly and with a certain amount of responsibility that it doesn't make us feel like anything can happen in this world and she can just resolve it and get through it just because she's the main character. She does take her time to react to certain instances and there are also certain instances during which I felt like she has this much power, but why not just put it into use and just sit like a doll right there? We have both of those going on here when it comes to Feyre, but I should say that I pretty much enjoyed it. Apart from her, the other main characters like Tamlin, Rhysand, Azriel, Cassian, Mor, Amren, Nesta, Elaine, everyone has something going on inside this book. And we get to dig into the backstories of so many of these side characters in this book only. And I understand why, because it is kind of the setup for the rest of the books that are going to follow inside the series. As everyone knows, the 4th book inside the series, which is A Coat of Silver Flames, follows Nesta and Cassian as the main characters, and there's a lot of build up and setting up for that in this book itself. So in terms of character development, Feyre was really great, and the parts that were dealing with the other characters felt like just setting up the further books inside the series. Now moving on to the world building, I can say that she has drawn in a lot of elements that she has used in the first and second books and also in quite a wise way here, because there are certain instances which are enjoyed by everyone irrespective of whether they like the series or not, and all those things have been pulled into this book also and have been used by the author here. it was quite enjoyable for me to read. And also we dig into the history of so many of the other side characters who do not occur for that much of a page count inside the books, but their presence is very much necessary in order to keep the story moving and also to provide a good layer for the richness for this world. Since it's kind of the finale for this series, or at least this arc of the series, as I've been saying from the beginning of the video, each and every quote has been made use of by the author here. Okay, there are so many instances during which we see the characters traveling across quotes, especially at least in the first half of the book, and the mortal land also comes into play. So for the final book, I can say that all these different places that have been built up as small chunks and pieces in the first two books have been explored properly and a bit more deeply inside this book. And the exploration of relationships also does not deter the world building in this one, if you ask me. The first book was mostly just Feyre and Tamlin getting together, and that was quite boring for me. But in the second book, that just changed in a completely different way. Here it just dives a bit deeper into that same world and gives us a lot more history of all the different pieces of this world which have not been connected so far. There are some connections which are made, and there are certain things which are just newly revealed to us in this third book itself. I should say that they don't feel that convenient. There are some connections that are going on from book 2 itself, so it doesn't feel like she just drops a bomb here and we as a reader just have to deal with accepting it. So in terms of world building, just like the first two books, you can actually feel this world. While you're reading the book, you will be inside Prithian, and I'm sure that you'll be able to experience each and every one of the quotes. Finally, in the spoiler-free part, talking about the pacing of this book, I can say that of all the elements of this book, the pacing was the one which felt very inconsistent to me, because the first 100 to 200 pages of the book moves very fast and it is super action-packed. I'm not saying that the rest of the book does not have that much action or anything, but those first 100 to 200 pages, it is like full-on power. Okay, we can see Feyre using all her powers properly and responsibly, and at the same time providing a lot of entertainment for us. But as we move on to the second chunk of the book, I can say that the pacing gets a bit clunky over there. Okay, it is not consistent. It is neither fast nor slow. It is somewhere in between, which doesn't feel that great if you ask me. And for a huge book like this, I personally think that we must be able to flip the pages continuously, or there must be something which is suspenseful which makes us want to keep on reading the book. It felt a bit off in the middle chunk of the book for me, and towards the end, I can say that the last chunk of the book felt a lot rushed. Okay, there were a lot of things brewing on and building up in the second chunk as well as the first chunk of the book, and towards the climax, it just felt like there was so much going on that the author had to increase the pace for certain things and did not provide enough time for us to just sink into those emotions and feel all those things that the characters are feeling. And there are also some conveniences that happened towards the climax of the book which kind of took out the value of certain emotions personally for me. Otherwise, I can say that the pacing of the book is fine. Okay, it's not like a huge issue, but if you're a person who likes to read only fast-paced books, I can see that it will be a huge issue for you, at least in the first half of the book or so. Once you get used to it, I think you'll be able to get on with it pretty well. So finally, I ended up rating this book 4.5 stars despite me having a few issues with it, because at the end of the day, I just had so much fun and it felt like a really good finale. I was able to get that feeling of this story is going to end right here, and we might probably not see any of these characters as we have seen them so far, even though there might be future books inside the series. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and now I'm going to dive into the spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled for the book, I'd suggest you to step out of the video. And if you have already read the book, please do stay on, because I have a ton of stuff to discuss with you. So let's start right now. Okay, in the spoilers, first I want to start talking about Feyre inside the spring court again. Okay, we are seeing Feyre in the spring court after she has gotten to know everything, and she has understood herself a bit more and accepted that she deserves only the best that the world has to offer to her. And this whole scheme of her and Rhysand putting together the idea for Feyre to bring down the spring court from within was just epic. Okay, I could have used 50 more pages of that particular chunk of the story, because I just enjoyed how she was just bringing down everyone by being in there. It was so much fun to read. Okay, the way in which she was continuously gaslighting and kind of manipulating Tamlin was very nice to see, because he's basically just stupid in this book. Okay, I can understand that he is doing that all out of love, but that does not justify the fact that he has kind of so much abused and harassed this woman, which is totally unacceptable. So I'm totally team Feyre here, because I enjoyed each and every moment that she was bringing down the spring court from within, in front of others as well as just by herself. And another added advantage that Feyre has here is that she has all those powers still within her, but Lucien as well as Tamlin don't have that much idea that she has all these powers. Lucian kind of understands that Feyre is trying to bring down the spring court from within because he wants to be with Elaine, who's revealed to be his mate, and both of them are not together, and Elaine is also not interested in even being high fae anymore. So Lucian is caught in that particular trap. At the same time, he wants to help Feyre, but he does not want to be very explicit with it. So whenever she's doing something to bring down the spring court from within, he's kind of just this spectator. He knows what's going on, but he's not going to reveal it to anyone so that Feyre can keep doing what she's doing, and she can clearly help Rhys and the Night Court to take over everything that is there. The basic plan of Feyre is to bring down the spring court, try to establish their power over there, at the same time bring down Hybern using this connection that she has spawned, which was really nice. Lucian is definitely one character I'm sure many people have loved from the first book itself. I can easily say that people might hate Feyre as well as Tamlin in the first book, but most probably everyone just liked Lucian because he was kind of the glue that was holding that book together, and without that fun character who was kind of like a mediator between both of these people, I don't think that the first book would have been enjoyable at all. So making proper use of him in this book by providing him as kind of a moral support for Feyre, even though she's super powerful here, was really nice. Now moving to the way in which Feyre actually tortures and breaks the bones in Ianthe's hands, okay? That particular scene itself was super epic, okay? I wanted to see Feyre using her Daemati powers for so long, okay? And it finally happened, especially in that moment. We learned that Ianthe is a person who has been abusing her power and her position by trying to make people just sleep with her, and it's basically just sexual harassment and rape that she's done on multiple men before. And when it actually comes to Lucian, and when Feyre sees her doing it, she just puts her power into play there, okay? And she makes Ianthe hurt herself. She makes Ianthe destroy her own hands with the huge rock. And she also alters her memory and brain in such a way that she cannot go forward and see a healer to get her hands fixed. She's never going to abuse anyone hereafter at all, and we get to see that dark side of the power that Feyre is possessing, okay? It's like a huge power, and she's been super mindful of how she wants to use it and how she's been using it ever since she got to know about it in A Court of Mist and Fury. And the way in which she put into play here was just awesome. I think that Ianthe deserves worse, and Feyre giving us this through her powers was just perfect, okay? I just enjoyed it to the core. I can understand that it might sound sadistic, but I personally think people like that deserve very horrible things to happen to them, and it should be shown to the world as a whole so that anyone who might even have a spark of a thought like that coming up in their head to abuse someone else who's weaker or not even weak should be frightened that something this horrible can happen to them if they go forward and even try to violate someone. And another interesting part inside this first chunk of the story is the prince and princess from Hybern, okay? Both of them were just huge assholes, and I did not like them at all. Especially the instances during which they would just be super smug, and there is also this particular scene where Lucian and Feyre together, they just let loose this huge demon on them, and they end up just running through the woods of the spring court, and they just complain it to Tamlin. It was super funny, and it felt super deserving too. And even towards the end of that particular part of the story, when they are going to escape from the spring court, Feyre and Lucian actually end up killing both of these people who have been super horrible, okay? And they've also poisoned all of the powerful fairies inside the spring court, including Feyre as well as Lucian, by giving them Faebane in small proportions so that they do not see the effect of that poison on them, which is totally chipping away their magic. At the same time, it is also affecting them immensely. We get to know all this, and we also see that they are going to escape from that place, but it's not going to be easy because of the consumption of Faebane. It added kind of a bit more obstacle to the story. Now it feels like Feyre as well as Lucian have escaped from the spring court, and they are heading towards the night court for quite a long time, okay? They make their way through the autumn court as well as the summer court, and they see that Lucian's brothers are actually going to come and attack the both of these people, so that they end up capturing them and kind of killing them too, so that, you know, Rhysand loses a bit of power, and they also have Feyre in their hand because she has a lot of power here. The way in which she got to use her magic a lot more in that particular chunk of the story was really nice, okay? We know that even from the second book itself that because of the fact that Feyre was given life to by all of the High Lords of the Seven Courts, she has at least a sliver of the power that all of them have been bestowed with ever since, like, you know, for centuries. So she's the only person who has a combination of all these powers, and there are only instances during which the power actually shows itself out to her. It's not like she can summon it at her will because she's not that much trained yet. And when they are just traveling through that frozen lake, and they are basically just kind of being thrown flame at by both of these brothers from the Autumn Court, if I'm not wrong. I'm not sure whether they are the brothers of Lucian or the two heirs from the Autumn Court because it is kind of foggy for me right now in my brain. But if you know it for sure, please do let me know in the comments, because I'd like to know it a bit more detailed. And during that instant, when they are going to be kind of just caught and taken away by the Autumn Court, come Azriel and Cassian, and they end up saving both of these people. During that instant only, we also get to know that Cassian as well as Azriel have been healed completely after getting so severely and gravely injured by the King of Hybern at the end of book 2. And obviously they are totally healed, and that was kind of convenient for me because it felt like they were like super horribly hurt, and it felt like Cassian or Azriel, either of the two of them, probably cannot fly anymore because their wings were super hurt. But here they are just like flying out of nowhere with all their power, and they are saving the both of these people. I'm not saying that they should not have saved, okay, but it felt like after going through that much torture and that much, physical harm and discomfort and dis-ease in their body, it just felt like they got fixed very soon, they healed very soon. It felt kind of convenient. At least she could have shown the injuries in the second book a bit more trivial, a bit more superficial, compared to making us feel like it is something which is very horrible and is going to affect the rest of their lives, where they are not going to be able to fly. I had that kind of impression while I read that chunk of the book, while I was reading ACOMAF. But seeing the both of them coming here and picking up Feyre and Lucian from here, even though was happy, felt a bit too convenient for me. Now, when they go to the Night Court, we also get to know that Elaine and Nesta have been under Rhys's care for all this time. Okay, Feyre actually knows this beforehand itself because she has been communicating with Rhys of what's going on here and what's going on in the Night Court through their maid bond. And because of this, she knows that everyone is doing okay and her sisters are safe with Rhys and they are kind of healing right now. But it is not in a good way, okay? It is very ugly because Nesta is just like a raging witch as she has been from book 1, and it has just gotten worse because she has been turned into High Fae against her will, and the power that she has is also not known by anyone so far. The power that both of the sisters have is not known so far, but we also get a hint that Nesta has actually stolen something from the Cauldron. It's not like the Cauldron has gifted her with a gift. She has actually taken it away from the Cauldron with the iron will that she has, as we've seen from book 1. Elaine is totally emotionally close because she was very excited to get married to this human being out there, but since she has turned into High Fae right now, the entirety of her marriage is kind of floating above in the air right now, and no one knows what's going to happen. And to top all of this discomfort off, we have the fact that Hybern can attack Prythian at any instant. Now, the main aim of the crew is just to try and strengthen their forces against the attack of Hybern and their army, because their army is kind of very, very huge, and Prythian can survive only if all the 7 courts come together and pose as a single army against Hybern, so that they can at least save their lands, as well as kind of help the humans also save their mortal world. So what we see here is both Elaine and Nesta should learn to use their powers, but Elaine is not ready for it because she's like totally mentally off right now because of all the things that have happened. And Nesta agrees to make use of her power to help repair the places where the wall has been ruptured, because there's this theory that since the Cauldron was responsible for the creation of the wall, Nesta, who's been created from the Cauldron, might also have the ability to mend the things that are wrong with the wall right now. So Nesta goes on to try and explore a lot more about her magic and learn how to use it with the help of Amren. For some reason, Amren was able to befriend Nesta, and of all the people inside the Night Court and this whole of Prythian itself right now, Amren is the only person who's kind of close with Nesta, and she, as usual, just fires at anyone who ever tries to get near to her. And even in book 2, we saw that Nesta and Cassian have this kind of connection, because when Nesta is turned into High Fae, Cassian is just feeling this huge urge to do something to help her. So they are probably mates, but it is not explicitly shown to us anywhere here, and it is not even stated as in the case of Elaine and Lucian. While Nesta is learning to make use of her powers and understand how it works, Feyre is also not idle, okay? She is just rummaging through the library to get some information of how to fix the wall and how to just oppose the army of Hybern when they are going to come and attack the people of Prythian as well as the people from the mortal world. So in order to learn all this, she's going through a lot of books. At the same time, she goes and meets the bone cover for the second time inside the prison along with Rhys, and the bone cover says that he wants this mirror of I don't remember its name, okay? He wants that mirror, and if he gets that, he can help Feyre. And Feyre also understands that she has been seeing the bone cover as a boy, right? She has been seeing the bone cover as a small boy, right? And that boy has felt familiar for her in the second book, and that's because it's actually the structure of the child that is going to be born to Feyre and Rhys, and it is kind of another bomb that is dropped on Feyre. And another thing which we have to keep in mind is when Nesta and Feyre together are researching in the library on this particular day, they are attacked by the forces of Hybern, and they are called Ravens. These soldiers are called Ravens, and just to protect themselves from these Ravens, Feyre ends up making a bargain or deal with the monster inside the library called Bryaxis, and the only person that has seen Bryaxis before is Cassian, and he's totally reluctant to talk anything about Bryaxis because he's been like deeply frightened and traumatized after seeing the beast. Feyre kind of strikes a deal with the monster, saying that it can get some company or get to see this moon and the stars and the sun through a window down that place inside the library, and it can end up helping them that is Feyre and Nesta, to save them from the ravens. At the same time, towards the end of the story, Bryaxis also admits to Feyre and says that they will be helped by it during the time of the war between Hybern and Prythian. Now talking about the things that actually happen inside the war. When Hybern comes and attacks Prythian, they are kind of okay because all the High Lords of the 7 courts have come to this agreement that they are going to fight together just in order to save Prythian. And obviously, many of them have problems with Rhysand as well as Feyre because of all the things that have happened in the first 2 books. Especially Tamlin is not at all okay with helping Rhysand and Feyre, but he has to do so in order to save the Spring Court as well as the entirety of Prythian as a whole. He kind of helped Hybern and the king only because he was still in love with Feyre and he thought that Feyre was under Rhysand's spell, and just in order to save her from him, he was teaming up with Hybern. But now it is not at all anything like that. He has totally understood that Feyre doesn't love him anymore, and he doesn't understand why though. Still, he goes forward and helps the other High Lords inside the 7 courts of Prythian so that they can save the world as a whole. And after all this is done, we also get the ability of Elaine that is being revealed to her. She has started talking in riddles, and it gets revealed to us that she has this ability of a seer. She can predict the future, but she cannot say anything as such in straightforward lines. She makes up riddles, and the answers for those riddles or the hidden meanings behind them is actually the prophecy that has been given to her because of the ability that has been bestowed on her by the Cauldron while she was turned into High Fae. And during this time only, we also see that Hybern has used the Cauldron in order to break off and destroy the wall. There's no wall anymore. Prythian as well as the mortal lands are not separated by magic. They are all together, and this makes Hybern's work of trying to capture both of those worlds very easy because there's nothing to divide the fairies and the human beings, and it's going to be a huge job for the fairies of Prythian in order to talk with the human beings and make them understand the things that are going to happen henceforth. During this time only, when they go and make some peace negotiations with the human beings, Elaine's engagement with her fiancé also breaks off, and Elaine clearly understands that she's not going to be married to him anymore, and the engagement is also totally over. She still goes into and sinks into a lot more despair. And again, during the war, what happens is they are kind of desperate right now, and Feyre knows that the only way to win the war and make something happen favorable for them is to get some answers. And the only way she knows how to get answers for these tough questions is by summoning the Suriel. So she goes forward and summons the Suriel with the help of Elaine. But while she's talking with the Suriel and when it is to give her answer at last, the Suriel is being attacked by Ianthe and 2 Hybern soldiers. So Feyre tricks them and takes them to the Weaver's tent, and she ends up feeding Ianthe and those soldiers to the Weaver. And the Weaver also forgives her because of the fact that Feyre ended up stealing Rhysand's ring from the Weaver in book 2. So many things come into focus here and crystallize at this point. The Suriel tells Feyre the way how she can save the world and herself, and it dies with her by its side. Having seen the Suriel at 3 different instances helping Feyre continuously in all these 3 books, it just feels sad to see the Suriel ending its life or reaching the end of its life with Feyre by its side. Now the big twist that we have in the war is that we have seen that Feyre, Elaine and Nesta's father has gone on to some other part of the world in order to trade some goods. But finally what happens is he gets to know about all this war, and he gets the army of the island in which the humans and Fae have been coexisting together, which is the only place in this world as such, and brings their army for help to fight against Hybern. And he has 3 ships named after his 3 daughters whom he brings there and saves the day. While doing all this, he's also killed by the king of Hybern after he does the final kind of help that he can do for his daughters. All of them are kind of broken right now, and after the king of Hybern ends up killing Nesta, Elaine and Feyre's father, it is very satisfying to see that Elaine and Nesta are the ones who end up killing the king of Hybern by beheading him. During this time, there is also a lot of other losses that have been inflicted on the army of Prythian. Especially there is this huge crew of the Illyrians who are lost because of the effect of the Cauldron on them, and Nesta ends up saving Cassian alone because she is able to sense the magic that is going to be emanated by the Cauldron, and because of that only Cassian is being saved by Nesta. Despite him being saved, so many other Illyrians end up dying in that particular spell that is cast by the Cauldron. And during the end, we see that Amren and Feyre are the 2 people who are going to cast a spell on the Cauldron in order to negate its power. But during that instant, Amren kind of betrays them because she knows that if she performs that spell, it will end up negating the power of the cauldron, at the same time releasing her from her fey body, which will make her forget everything that has happened with these people. So at the end we see that Feyre as well as Rhysand together come and neutralize the cauldron, because of which Rhysand ends up dying. And conveniently towards the end, all the 7 High Lords or 6 High Lords for this case come and give their power right now, and Rhysand also comes back to life, which just felt super stupid to me because there was no loss at all. We could have at least left Amber dead, but even she was not, because Rhysand ends up saving her. It just felt like death did not have a value at all inside the story, despite a huge war being there. We can see that Nesta, Elaine and Feyre have lost their father, but he was not like a huge part of the story at all. He was just in the thoughts of these 3 daughters. Apart from that, she was not at all present in the story. So even though he dies, it does not weigh a lot more, if you ask me, compared to the losses that might have happened, which ended up not happening in the story. Finally, I want to talk about 2 things which I did not like about the series, okay, and this book in specific. The first one is the total neglect for the value of death, okay? It just felt like everyone that was dying was brought back to life. Every main character that we have spent a quite amount of time with dies in the series and they get back to life. It started with Feyre in book 1, okay? And I can understand, in order to bestow her and give her all those powers and turn her into High Fae, something very horrible should happen to her, and only after that she can get back to life and get all those powers. So it was logical and practical at that point. But here in book 3, after the end of this huge battle, we don't just end up saving Rhysand. Saving Rhysand was okay, because we get this idea of the future that Rhysand and Feyre are going to have a baby together, which is going to look like in the form of the bone carver as we see inside the prison. But it felt like there was no need at all to just bring back Amren from the death, because it just felt unnecessary. I think leaving her dead there might have given like a bit more of a stronger emotional punch to us readers. I'm happy that everyone survived, but also it feels like super unrealistic, even though it's fantasy and escapism. And the second thing which I did not like is the fact that it felt like the series did not have any characters of color, at the same time characters that were not straight at all. Okay, we have basically one character who was revealed to be not straight, that is Maud, that too only in this book, and it felt like she was just pushed in there, because I can understand if one person is able to see this straightness and whiteness of the story and the series as a whole, many more people might have felt it after the end of book 2 itself. So it just felt like the author was doing kind of a favor by making more a queer character in this one. They're also all fairies, right? So I don't think sexuality is a huge matter to them. I'm not saying that every character here needs to be queer, but when they are making some characters queer, it needs to be, genuine. It needs to be organic. It just should not feel like she has dropped in them just in order to, answer the questions that have been thrown at her. It felt like that to me at multiple instances. And trust me, I did not feel like any of these characters were not white at all. She could have said at places here and there that these people have these kind of skin, this color of skin. Further, you can just go forward and say that, this is a person of color. We can skip away because we have a person of color here, so there is diversity. It felt like that here. Even though it was entertaining, I think just including a bit more variety of people inside the world as a whole could have made it a bit more organic and realistic, and a lot more relatable to much more readers across the world. So yes guys, that's it for my review and discussion of A Coat of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. I'll be coming up with the review and discussion for the next 2 books inside the series also pretty soon, in the next month or so. So if you've not subscribed yet to the channel, please do consider subscribing, because I have a lot of things to talk about this series. At the same time, I'm also going to continue with all the other series that Sarah J Maas has written also. I'll be reading Crescent City after I finish the videos for this batch. So if you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.